All right, Coach, talk about Nevada this week, senior day, and then obviously Josh Allen going to be a packed house.
Yeah, there's a lot of things this week. Obviously, we need to play well this week. Playing a Nevada team coming off their best performance of the year, a team that does have good players in some key positions. They've got some versatility with their offense, and they've got a tight end, Jet Carpenter. It's a very good player, and they've got two defensive ends that could wreck a lot of plays if you're not. You got to be on things. So we're going to play very well this week. We have a lot of things that we obviously have to get better at and get cleaned up. It's super exciting, for what this week is with Josh Allen coming back here and everything that way. And the amount of free publicity that the University of Wyoming gets every time that Josh Allen ever steps on a football field, and even on that 5 and 10 second clip when he says it's Josh Allen, University of Wyoming, and it's Sunday Night Football, and there's 40 million people watching it. You can't put a price tag on that. So what he's done for the university, what he does for our program is, it can't be, calculated in that way. And I think that that's something that we're all very excited about him coming back for. Senior Day, we have a number of players in this program who've been here for a while, and it'll be, the senior days are always tough days, and the fact that it's the last time that you see certain guys on the field, and there's a true love between myself and the players in this program and the players that will be seniors that exit this program, not only from the Jack Walshes and Caden Barnetts who've been here for a long period of time, but also the guys that are new to our program. A Chisholm Ifiani and a Braden Johnson, and just to name a couple that you look at that and that whole group, I think, one of the things that we highlighted this year is we needed really good play from our seniors, and I think in a lot of instances we've gotten that. I think in some other instances there's some guys that can still keep developing and playing better these last couple games. But what we've gotten from Evan Eller this year, what we've gotten from Braden Johnson this year, what we've gotten from Chisholm and how Jack Walsh has played and Caden Barnett and guys like that, just appreciative of all their hard work and what they've done in this program. So with that, we'll take questions.
Jay, with all the issues on offense, would you say one of them and a main one might be that what's the identity? What is the identity of that group? And is it frustrating to maybe you think there is one, but I guess on the outside we don't necessarily?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's this. Number one, when we talk about the offense, and we've struggled the last 2 weeks, it's easy to see. We've struggled the last 2 weeks. We played two really good defenses. Boise scored 4 more points than us in those 2 weeks against the same two teams. And so, it's one of those things that they've had the same struggles as well. We have to, you say it and it's real easy. This isn't NFL Live. I'm not Sean Payton. I'm not coming on here and I'm going to openly criticize players in our program. There are players, okay? And we've got to help them get better. We've got to help them get better schematically. We've got to help them get better fundamentally. We've got to help them get better repetition-wise. And within that comes the fact that, over the last couple weeks, it's hard to figure out what we've been good at. We get spotty in certain things. We run the ball at times fairly well. But then, to just rely on it play after play after play, then occasionally it gets shut off and then we have to do other things. We haven't created enough space in the perimeter for the quarterback to throw the ball to in certain situations. There was very, very, very tight windows against San Diego State for us to complete passes. Okay, that's one thing. We've had two of the better defensive lines in the Mountain West the last 2 weeks, and there's been pressure without people always having to blitz. Which that is in and of itself an issue. Look, you can go. It's not going to be a comparison, anything like that. But just when you look at that level of how that is, take the Super Bowl last year and Patrick Mahomes and how he looked against the Philadelphia Eagles, getting constant pressure and no one open. All right, well, it makes it difficult. So just to sit there and blame the quarterback on everything, there's a lot of things that go into it. There's 11 players on the field. We have to help all 11 players. We're not going to make an excuse. We've got to be better. And that's the charge to what we've got. We've got to, look, I want to make it to where the University of Wyoming averages 30 points a game. I want that to happen. And some of those things sometimes take some time to develop and to do that. But we can be a lot better than what we've been. You say, what's the identity? It's, that's the hard thing. We try to be balanced at times. Well, it's hard to be balanced when at times when you don't have success running the ball. Okay, so now you got to throw it and the whole deal. Or you're not throwing it proficiently enough, which then magnifies every little thing that you do in the run game. And we were not proficient throwing the ball the other night at all. And, that was a big issue.
Jay, going off that a little bit, how do you kind of, or I guess what are some conversations in the wide receiver room to maybe challenge these guys to create more separation in these next 2 games?
Look, they get challenged and coached every day in that regard. So it's not something there. One of the things that, and it's not a bailout on anything in this regard. The last 2 games we played a team that's ranked 7th in total defense, 12th in total defense. That's the last 2 games, and we've done them both on the road. That's not necessarily conducive to just, you're automatically going to score 35 points. And so, again, it's not an excuse. We've got work to do. But we've had work to do, for a while in this program offensively. We went to Boise 2 years ago with a bunch of talent offensively. We gained 112 yards and scored 7 points. Okay? So when we've played a top-tier defense, we've got to be better. We've got to develop more. We've got to improve. And they're getting coached. I don't question that. I know what's being coached to them and the whole thing that way. We've got to be better. And that's something that, as we get into recruiting and development and those types of things, I think there's a lot of different avenues that we have to look at from that standpoint too. But right now, it's the fact that we have to play better. We have to help our players play better. And we've got to put them in positions that they can be their best. And we've got to figure out when we aren't our best, what we can do fundamentally to help that out. And that's the biggest pieces to this.
How do you manage the morale of your defense when they're playing at such a high level consistently, but the offense doesn't really pay that off or use that to stay?
Yeah, look, I think that there's, what you try to do is with each player and each unit on the field, it's just do your job, and do your job. And regardless of what the scoreboard is, you just do your job. And, the only thing that I've had a complaint with the defense the last 2 weeks is last 2 games is when we've gotten to a certain point in the fourth quarter, we've allowed the one big home run play. And that's what we can't allow that one play. And it's 10-3 the other night. We just threw an interception. They have the ball at their own 42-yard line. We need to get stopped. And we gave up a home run play, and now it's 17-3. And at that point, it probably felt like 70-3, in terms of, trying to get, the 2 touchdowns that we needed to get at that point. So, look, I've been through that before in the sense. In 2021 here, as a defensive coordinator, we went 11 quarters without scoring a touchdown. Okay, for the last 2 at Air Force, all game against Fresno, 4 quarters against New Mexico, we got a field goal in the first quarter of San Jose. And what happens is this, we were playing good on defense, Fresno game, New Mexico game, and started off playing pretty good on defense against San Jose. But then it was like, when the offense did start to click then, we didn't play as well defensively. So it is something that you got to guard against in the fact that, you just got to keep doing your job. And it will work through. And no different than it was in 2021 that way. Tim Polsek was extremely frustrated. He's a really good coach. But he just kept going with what he knew and kept going with how to coach guys and everything that way. And you eventually break through certain things. And that's what we've got to do. And when we do break through offensively, we do get some of those things. Hopefully that just builds the energy and intensity defensively as it goes.
Coach, one of the bright spots on Saturday was Tote Harris. Has he separated himself? And then also a couple times this year he's been just shoestring tackled, just that keeps him from getting that home run touchdown that you need. Do you potentially see him adding an extra gear in the next couple of years where that doesn't happen?
Well, that would be the hope. Right now, the hope would be that he's guy that's 15 pounds heavier, and with that comes development, speed, strength. He's already fast, but what you want is that extra 15 pounds and more balance and everything that way on some stuff. And so, that's certainly, in his wheelhouse to be able to do. And, look, he's a good player, and we actively look for ways that where we're going to get him the football. Okay. He's one of the guys that we look at, and it's easy when, in one sense, right, you can hand it off to him, but we want to look for ways that we can get him the ball and get him, loose and free at times and things. And so, and I think that's kind of the big thing right now is like, when you look at it, the biggest threat, big play threat that we currently have offensively right now is breaking a run, and look, I mean, let's be honest, like when you get to that point, what that's got to turn into at times is you got to have a guy that you can throw a post to or throw a vertical to. And right now we're not able to do that enough, and that has hamstrung certain things offensively that we've got to be able to do.
Jay, Nevada's coming off obviously their first Mountain West win in the last 16 games or something. What did you maybe see out of them in this San Jose State game that was different?
Different. I don't know. I think it's a credit to them in the fact of how they played the San Jose State game. I mean, they punched a hole in them, and they did it right from the start. So it wasn't something like, okay, they were going out there with a lack of confidence or a lack of direction, and just some things happened. They come out right from the start to like, we're going to win this game, and you better be ready to play. And they punched a hole in San Jose State pretty quick, and they did it on both sides of the ball, really in how they controlled everything, and they controlled the line of scrimmage, and that's a big piece to it. And like I said, when you go back through it, and and the danger is like you look at a record or something like that, you watch video and you hope a team looks a certain way, and then you watch them and you realize they don't look that way. They've had some turnover issues in that, but minus those, they've been right there with people, all year. The Boise game is a close game for a big long stretch. They go to New Mexico and very well could have won that game. They lost to Fresno by 3. So they've been in those games. So I don't think that they, have necessarily, performed poorly, all the way through. And they've got some guys that are really good players, and so that's a big concern.
Jay, we know the last two defenses you faced were obviously really good, but Caden's been pretty inconsistent throughout this entire campaign. Yep. What is his confidence like, and what is your confidence like in him?
Well, his confidence, I can't fully speak to that because, I'm not him in that regard. I think, he keeps a positive demeanor to him. I saw him this morning. He's still in a positive place and everything that way. And look, to play that position, you got to be able to let some things bounce off of you at times. And that's the danger. Like, and you say, what's my confidence level in him? Well, look, I think that he gives us a chance to be successful. We have to help him too. I mean, like I said, it's not just, okay, one guy just go through the door and everything about it. Like, right? Andrew Peasley plays in a pro league. Everybody hated him when he was here, right? Like, I mean, this guy's a sophomore right now, right? I loved Andrew Peasley, right? But when you talk about anybody on the outside world, and what happens is, this guy's a sophomore, he's going to have growing pains, and then everybody always wants to see the backup, right? So put in Mason Drew. So now we're going to put in a freshman. So now, we put in a freshman and we do that, and he has a poor performance, and now everybody's going to shovel dirt on him, and he's got 4 more years in the program. So, at times you got to be very marginalized on how you do certain things. We've not performed well enough. I get it. Offensively, we have not performed well enough. And I totally understand that. And I'm as frustrated right now as a coach as I've ever been in my career, okay, with anything. All right, and it's one of those things that you have to keep pushing forward. You have to keep working on ways that you think these are things that we are good at. These are things that we can work against the opponent that we're going to play. And these are things that we're proficient enough at executing and can do. And you have to continue to do that. Now, in the macro of everything, as the head coach, you're looking at it and saying, okay, beyond this year, what do I need to do and address to help this program get better at all the positions offensively? And that is a big key to it too. But in the micro right now, where we're playing games week to week, we have to get better. We have to improve. And there's things fundamentally we have to improve at. We had a redshirt freshman tackle the other night get 3 penalties, 2 holds and a false start. Okay, well, that's 25 yards that we really can't afford right now. Okay, but he's a redshirt freshman and he's really talented. So, what am I going to do? Cast him aside? No, we got to work with the guy and we got to help him get better. So that's part of it too.
Mason, you guys get his first action in the game this last weekend. What was your takeaways from seeing him there, and what's kind of his role in this offense?
Mason belongs, so that was my takeaway. It wasn't like when he went out on the field that you felt there was any kind of fear factor or anything that way. As far as role in the offense, that's something that we'll continue to work through and work on and everything that way. And if I specifically knew or wanted to say it, I wouldn't tell you guys anyway right now, so it's just part of it.
You talked about the impact of Josh Allen a little bit earlier, but I'm curious about that impact on recruiting and also the impact on the guys in the locker room right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Josh Allen, being from Wyoming is always is an impact, being from the University of Wyoming, because it's name recognition, right? Like you're always in today's world looking for name recognition at certain things, right? We live in a TikTok age, we live in a Instagram age, and all these different things. And a lot of people don't know much of anything unless it's on TikTok, okay? So several years ago, I'm coaching at the University of Minnesota, and I'm recruiting in the South, in certain places in Alabama and places like that at times. And there would be people that you would say, yeah, I'm from the University of Minnesota, and they would say, what conference is that in? Okay, right? So like anytime that you get name, and this is, it's a Big Ten school, right? There'd be people that don't know. And so anytime that you can get name recognition for your university in any way, shape, or form, it always helps because people will automatically associate that this guy played at the University of Wyoming and is now the best player in the NFL and that whole thing there. And it's also a good, it's a good emblem for players in our program right now, right? If you're good enough to play in the NFL, right, people will find you. People will come to, we've had more scouts through here this year by far than what we did a year ago. We only had one player in a camp a year ago, and it was our kicker. You know what I mean? So, like, we've had a lot more this year to it, which is a positive. And, and the goal is we got to increase that going forward. You're in a transfer portal age. Keep people. We've had one person leave here that's been drafted. Okay, and he was a 7th round pick and isn't in the league. So that's not necessarily been a hot ticket for people either.
Jay, you touched on it a little bit, but guys like Jack Walsh and Cade Barnett, you've known them since the minute they walked into this building. They've stayed here. They're the rare breed now that stays at one school their whole time. They also believed in you as a head coach, as a first-year head coach who went through the trials of a 3-win season last year, and they stayed. Mm-hmm. What do 2 guys like that mean to you?
Well, first of all, there's just a complete love for those two, their families, the people themselves, everything that way. Because look, they love the University of Wyoming. They love their teammates. They love the people that they walk in this building with. They've both felt that their best opportunity was to stay here and to play here and to be a part of everything that is Wyoming football, from development to, everything that happens from a coaching. They love Coach Tripodi. There's just a lot there that you have a great deal of respect for them. The hard part as a head coach, right? Like, is you take that responsibility full on serious, in the fact that, it hurts when we don't have success offensively, and these 2 guys are fighting their butt off and doing that. And, in some instances, you're looking at it and just like, we're a step away from what we need to be in certain things on that. And so that's a, that hurts as a head coach at times when you do that. But they're both great. Caden Barnett told me probably the best thing that I'd heard in a long period of time after the Fresno game the other night. And so this is one of those things that when that players in the program have leadership skills, have your back in the program, when things don't always go well, right? Like, yeah, I didn't want to score 3 points the other night. I want to score 30, and do that. And in order to do that, we needed to execute some things at a lot higher level than what we did. And it's just, a piece to it. But those guys will forever be, immortalized in my mind in that part. And look, there's a gift that I have for them that I think some of them know and some of them don't, but it's kind of cool. And so all the seniors is something I got for them a little bit. They'll appreciate it. So.
Jay, you talked about obviously Tote Harris, offensive line. How important is it to maybe establish the run game this week and maybe take some of that pressure off of Caden?
Yeah, first of all, it's critical for us to be able to run the ball. It is. And then, look, we've got to be proficient at the things that we do in the pass game. We have to become better. That's the bottom line. We've had streaks this year, okay, where we've thrown the ball well and created space and all that. These last 2 games, we've had a hard time throwing the ball and creating space. And again, this isn't it's not a bailout that way, but I could call Spencer Danielson and he and I could have the same conversation right now, and they're playing with, I think, a redshirt freshman quarterback. We're playing with a redshirt sophomore quarterback. Well, sometimes it's kind of ugly, and there's pieces to that. And as much as I want it to go like that, sometimes it doesn't. We have a true freshman tailback. We have a redshirt freshman offensive tackle. None of that's an excuse. We have to help our players get better, and we have to help them within what they do best to get better. And that was a big focus of what we did as coaches yesterday, and what we've continued to do this morning is figure out what's the best wheelhouses that we have within the structures that we're going to play against, that gives us the best chance of moving the ball and creating momentum and establishing things on the field.
Coach, you've talked about the impact of former players returning to work with or speak to, involve themselves with current athletes at the University of Wyoming. What's the current Pokes in the Pros roster been involvement-wise for the program, and do you solicit that, or do you just evaluate whether it's helpful as it might come from a Josh Allen, Logan Wilson, Frank Crum?
Yeah, look, I think there's phases to it, right? I think number one, the door is always open for those players when they come here. Frank comes here often, okay, because he's in Denver and he's from Laramie, so we get to see him often, and so it was great to see him make a play in a game yesterday that was an important play. And so that, Logan comes back here and did a camp here this summer. All those types of things that way. Their involvement, and we have a bunch of players, we had 40-some players that worked his camp and get a chance to meet him and get a chance to be around him. I think all of those things are huge, huge, huge positives, okay? What you don't do, and what you're really careful about doing, is the one thing you can't do, and I witnessed this at another school at another time with the players and NFL players, you just automatically hold your hand out to that guy. No, that's not the way that's done. They're always welcome here, and they're always welcome here because of what they have meant to this school, what they continue to mean to this school, and all those things that way. And that's really the bottom line to it. And so I never coached Logan Wilson, but if I texted him right now, I would get him within 30 minutes. Okay, and I appreciate that about Logan Wilson, and I think that's something that in the recruitment of Mason Drew, okay, I know Mason reached out to Logan and learned what it meant to be a high-profile Wyoming player playing at the University of Wyoming. Okay, well, that's really cool. And now take it a step further, Mason Droop's a quarterback. And there's going to come a time Mason Droop will be the starting quarterback at Wyoming. I know everybody wants it to be like this week. Probably going to have to wait, right? Like in that regard. But there will come a day that will happen. And I think when that does, obviously that becomes a whole, that's a big deal for someone who's from the state of Wyoming to be, at that type of magnitude. So look, the door's open to everybody. It's a former player, a former great. This is a special place. I get it. And I love the fact that so many people care. I love the fact that, and look, to everybody, I want to score 35 points a game, and I want that to come in the near future. We're going to work our ass off to try to get this to happen. Where a year from now we can look at it and go, we score 30 points a game. We're working on it. Like, I want to get this done and that part of it there. And I want to do it while continuing to be as good or better than what we are on defense and do that thing. But there's some elements to it that we aren't there yet. And we have to not only coach better, fundamentally and schematically on certain things, but we've got to continue to recruit, develop, bring in guys with all the different stuff, create competition, all the stuff. So it's big picture, little picture.
Nevada's Chuba Purdy really can do a lot of different things on offense. How dangerous is he to contain?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously a concern for us going forward. It's a guy that's got almost 400 yards rushing, can throw the ball some, when they choose to. That creates a weapon, right? And what happens in that at times is you don't know how they're going to utilize that weapon, right? And so, every game you're going to see something typically that you have not worked on. And a big piece of it is what your fundamentals and foundation that you come back to is on how you stop that play or if that play works. And, so he's a big concern because he runs well. He's a good athlete, very versatile. They can do a number of different things with him. And, so he's obviously on our list of priorities for this week for sure.
Jay, I'm curious what your honest thoughts were when a guy from a defensive tackle from Anaheim, California shows up on your practice field one day in Ben Florentine, and what you thought about him and what he's really done and accomplished over these 4 years.
Yeah, when Ben showed up, he's a preferred walk-on from California, and didn't think much more about it. He was just a little short guy that was 225 pounds or something like that. I say short, he's actually a little bit taller than me. We did test that out here recently, and he's got me by like an inch and a half. But he had this goal, and he kept working, right? And put on weight and kept going. And eventually it was kind of like, really, Florentine? Like, we're going to, and this is a couple years ago. And he just kept pushing, and he did a great job on the scout team. And he kept improving. The difference in him from last year to this year, even as a player, is tremendous. A year ago, he was a guy that could get off the ball and kind of hold a gap and didn't really make a lot of plays, and would miss some things and stuff like that. The plays that he makes right now, he's played his butt off, and look, he's a guy. I have a great appreciation for him, for his family, for everybody, involved with Ben Florentine's life. His dad was talking to me in the hotel the other day about, talking to my daughter for a while and saying that he's just like, hey, thanks for letting us borrow your dad for a while. Shoot, I love being around Ben Florentine. That's great.
Jay, going back to Frank, have you ever seen a offensive tackle block a kick, and what was kind of your reaction to that play yesterday?
Yeah, so here's the thing that people don't realize in the NFL, right, is there's a 53-man roster.
Yeah.
Right, and so that's what we talk to our guys about a lot of times too. And you better be good at other things. You better be good at a special team or something like that. Frank Crum blocking a kick is a great example of that. You know, there's a lot of guys that are skill players that they think they're a receiver only and that they don't have to block on a kickoff return or something like that. You know what? Go to an NFL game, watch pregame warm-ups, watch routes on air. There's like 6 receivers. And there's not much going on. And you look at it and go, well, other than the first 2 are getting paid a lot of money, all these other guys got to be doing this other stuff. And so for Frank to be able to do that, I mean, it's good utilization by them of a really tall guy that's going to play hard. And look, I wish Frank could come back and play for us now. That would be very, very beneficial there. But again, I'm really happy for Frank, and he's got a great family, and he's great to see when he comes around.
Coach, to that point about Ben Florentine, to see somebody who is a walk-on come from where he did, it shows maybe it's more about heart and desire than it's really the measurables. And you spoke last year in recruiting about getting guys that gotta have it. Do you kind of see maybe that as a more of a need in this group, that we need more guys that have that desire?
I think, look, here's what I tell you. There is the gotta have it to it. There is that for sure. I think that, I think certainly when we go into, this, to replace certain guys after this season, and particularly skill guys, offensively on some things, I think that's always going to be a trait, in that regard. And I think that, look, I think the reason that we're in a much better spot defensively is you go across the board and you look at that, and there's a group of people that's the way they are. Braden Johnson has to live this, and Ben Florentine has to live this, and Dances Miller has to live this, and that whole thing. And those guys have all been impactful in this program. And I think that's something that you can't measure. And to Ben's credit, he's had as much heart, as much passion for football as anybody. And I love Ben Florentine to death. But yeah, I mean, look, I think that's always the measuring thing of what, look, we had a guy last year, he's not here, he's somewhere else. He was more interested in putting a picture on Instagram than he ever was playing. So I had a guy call me from the school he went to, and I said, look, here's the thing about him, he's not going to have a bad day, whether he wins or loses. Okay, we can't have that guy around, right? And so I'm glad that player isn't in the program right now, but like, there's things to this that's always the goal, and that's the hardest thing in today's world to always find, is to get the information that you need in those ways. Good? That's it.
Thank you.